How's it going, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. So in past videos I have referenced that I am a collector of old school music. I collect tapes, I collect vinyl records, I collect CDs of course too. And by the way, in case any of y'all are interested in seeing any bits of my collection, you can go over to my third channel, Grant's Tapes. I do lots of unboxing videos, but it's not really unboxing because it's taking albums out of plastic. So I've got lots of tapes over there, a few CDs. I have a massive backlog of videos of stuff that I've gotten over the past few years. I'm still in the process of uploading, so if you want to see any of that stuff, it's lots of old school country, lots of old school hard rock and heavy metal. And I cover a whole lot of genres over on that channel. So again, if you're interested in collecting physical media, tapes, records, etc., go and check that channel out and subscribe. But of course, I am always collecting and I'm always expanding my collection. And so I figured, why not show you guys some of my recent hauls and talk a little bit about the recent albums that I've been getting and stuff I've been adding to my collection. And so recently I went to the music store in San Francisco, California, and yes, that's what it's called. It is called The Music Store. I first went to the store a few years ago, I think in 2015, and this is when I was starting my 80s and 90s country music collection. I actually got some really good cassette tapes there. In fact, some of them were sealed, so they were like new old stock, sealed, completely brand new vintage country cassette tapes. And so I always had in the back of my mind to go back to the store to go see the stuff they had left. So recently I went back. I managed to get a few more items to add to my collection, so I'll be going through that a little bit with y'all, and I've got footage of those albums that I'll be playing in the background as I talk about them. So as I mentioned, the first time I went to the store a few years ago, I managed to get some sealed vintage cassette tapes, which was what really made me remember the store, because it's like, man, how many stores left are there that still sell vintage sealed cassette tapes? Most record stores have used tapes. They have plenty of them, but not many have new old stock stuff still left. And so I went back, and sure enough, there actually were some country albums that were still sealed up, so I'm going to show you guys some of those in a second. So right here we have the infamous Billy Ray Cyrus. This is his second album, It Won't Be the Last, which followed up Some Gay Ball, which of course spawned Achy Breaky Heart and is still to this day the best-selling debut album for a male artist ever. And of course, not only was that an infamous album, and Billy Ray Cyrus was hated by a lot of country music critics, but of course it sold so many copies that it was an album that famous is basically impossible to follow up, no matter whether you're good or bad. So It Won't Be the Last has some quality tracks on there. In the Heart of a Woman is the intro track, and that's I think that, in my opinion, that's Billy Ray Cyrus' best song. It's a great single, and it did become a hit for him, but really after 1993, when this album was released, Billy Ray Cyrus just never, ever lived up to the heights of that lofty first record, and he was, pretty much out of country music mainstream as soon as this album came out, basically. Like, once this album cycle ended, he was done. Then we have another album that came out in 1993. This is the debut self-titled album of Tracy Byrd, who is one of several great country singers to come out of Beaumont, Texas, especially during the 90s. You had Mark Chestnut, Clay Walker, and Tracy Byrd all come out of Beaumont, so there's a bit of a thriving scene down there at the time. And I actually already own this album, but of course, this copy is brand new, sealed up, only $5. I mean, I had to go for it. So many great songs on here. Hold in Heaven was, of course, his first big hit. That's on here, but you've also got That's the Thing About a Memory, Back in the Swing of Things, Edge of a Memory, Hat Trick, just all in all, awesome album, super cool. Then the last new old stock album I have here is a Randy Travis compilation that came out in the mid-90s called Randy Travis in His Own Words, and it's put out by Publishers Clearinghouse. If you've heard the name Publishers Clearinghouse but you can't remember what it is, it's like that sort of like lottery group, I guess, that like runs those sweepstakes where it's like, oh, if you enter this, you could win a $1 million jackpot, or you could win $5,000 a week for life and never have to work again. Those competitions that are almost impossible to win. I guess they were putting out compilation CDs and cassettes in the 80s and 90s. All in all, this is actually a pretty cool compilation. I got it mainly because it's so funny. Like, Publishers Clearinghouse was doing cassette tape compilations, but there's actually some good Randy Travis tracks on here. You've got Promises, you've got Better Class of Losers, I Told You So. There's just a lot of really good Randy Travis songs on here, and I was kind of surprised to see how good this compilation was, so this one's kind of cool. And then we move on to the rest of the tapes I got. I made some big important additions to my George Strait collection, and I got several of his albums that came out in the late 1990s that I did not own yet. I got Carrying Your Love With Me, 1997, One Step at a Time, 1998, and Always Never the Same, 1999. And so I actually did not own these George Strait albums yet. I think I own every single George Strait album from the 1980s through the 1990s, with the exception of Straight Country, Does Fort Worth Ever Cross Your Mind, Holding My Own, and Pure Country. Other than that, I own every single one of his albums on cassette thanks to these purchases. George Strait was kind of in an interesting stage in the late 1990s. He definitely did have some traditional songs still, but he was leaning a bit more into like contemporary sort of poppier stuff. Not to say like he went totally pop or anything like that, but songs like, you know, Carrying Your Love With Me and Write This Down were definitely not as traditional as his old school stuff. But of course, it's George Strait, solid albums, of course, and, you know, very important to add to my collection. I've been looking for these for a while. Then I expanded my Clint Black collection. I now own his first 5 albums on cassette. This is No Time to Kill, and it took me a long time to track this one down, actually. Of course, it's not hard to find this album on cassette and in used condition on eBay, but, you know, I wanted to make sure to see if I can get it like a new sealed copy first. Those are hard to find. And then whenever I would go to record stores and look at their used tapes, Clint Black's other albums are pretty common, but this one for some reason is particularly rare. I'm not really sure why, but I found his other early 90s albums way more often than this one. But this is, of course, a great album. A good run of Bad Luck, State of Mind, awesome song. Tuckered Out, which is a great closing track, super fast-paced, lots of great lyricism and country music references. Great album. And then I'm glad I finally tracked this one down. I've been looking for this one for a while. More Love by Doug Stone. This is Doug Stone's 4th album. Of course, Doug Stone was a popular country singer in the 1990s. He's gone on to become super underrated since then. One of those guys that was very, very famous in the 1990s, but he's sort of fallen into obscurity since then because, you know, he didn't have the longevity of someone like Alan Jackson or George Strait, right? But of course, was very popular in the 90s, had a ton of great hits. There's some great songs on this album. Addicted to a Dollar, the title track, I Never Knew Love, which is one of the greatest ballads of all time in the history of country music, in my opinion. And this album was a big step up for Doug Stone in terms of production. If you listen to his first 3 albums that came out before this one, the production on those albums is really, really thin. But with this album, he teamed up with producer James Stroud. He had produced albums for Clint Black, Tracy Lawrence, Clay Walker, and John Anderson at this point. Was kind of a superstar producer in the early 1990s. And his production really, really helps Doug step up to his A game. This album sounds amazing, great songs on here, and I think it's one of Doug Stone's best projects. So yeah, guys, that is my haul from the music store. Just got a few tapes there. Wanted to show those off and talk about those albums a little bit. Let me know if you guys want to see any more collection haul videos from me. I just wanted to get some more content out and sort of expand beyond just basic commentary videos. So let me know if you like this video. Thank you guys for watching.